Heading on it us and we'll begin. Okay, I'll first call the public hearing to order. Are there any comments, oral or written, concerning the 2023-2024 amended school budget? Any in person? Any comments? Okay, seeing no comments, I will adjourn the public hearing. Next, we'll call to order the regular school board meeting. And please note that all directors are present in person. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statements?
I think Ron's really good at that.
I don't know that Ron has them up.
Oh,
Yeah,
Should I do it for you, Ron? I'm also good.
that'd be wonderful.
Go ahead, Brian.
Mission and vision statement. The Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thanks, Brian. Next, we'll move to old business. First is to discussion and potential approval of the Pebble and Save capital projects, formerly called summer projects.
So we looked at these just briefly last month. We've got a more of a priority list. We've got them into categories of 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to recommend 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3 this year in both areas, and then the 4s we moved to a deferred item. Part of the thought process on that was with a potential big capital project coming up for a new school, we want to start replenishing our Pebble and Save accounts. And so both accounts, as a kind of a summary, we anticipate revenue for Pebble next year of about 1.5 million. And we have proposed expenditures out of the Pebble at 1.4 million. So we deposit a little bit. The big thing coming out of the Pebble this year is that middle school roof project. And so we also put some vehicles. It's easy for districts to defer buses. But then the problem is you get where you have a really old fleet of buses and you can't make that up in 1 or 2 years. So that the Pebble we kind of kept to buildings and vehicles. So Save kind of very similar. We anticipate about $1.5 million in revenue. We have expenditures coming out of there at 1.175 or 1.175. Out of the Save, all the ones are kind of things we have to do, the rental of the pool, band, orchestra, bowling center, copiers, leases for computers, or required things like the seclusion rooms, which is a state requirement. Then we move to area 2, which are the things that we probably don't want to delay, which will make the district better, bus charging, power out. And then 3, we put in some activities upgrades, that softball laser grading and irrigation update is part of now that the district owns the softball field in its entirety. We have the ability to put a fence. If you've ever gone and put up a little, I wouldn't even say it's a snow fence. It's like a little kiddie fence that they put up. I'm not even joking. It wouldn't keep my dogs in and they're old. So unfortunately we put up this little fence. And our opportunity to dig that up and laser grade it and put in a real fence. And while you're doing all that, that's when you put in your irrigation. So that is kind of a big cost, but we don't want to wait any longer than we have to.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Could we put up a new interior fence before the city would build some new softball fields?
Well, this is about putting in, we own it, so we're gonna put in a fence where we want it, and the city knows that. The problem is, like, if you and I said, well, I bet we could put in a fence and, you know, Ron will help. Like, we gotta get it laser, they want it to be level and laser graded and do all the, so we don't have to do it twice.
Correct. The question is, are they still playing softball on that field, and will they want to play softball on that field prior to them constructing some new softball fields?
I don't think that they use that field very often, but we've said both of the fields, until we start construction, we're gonna allow them usage, which then they're gonna help us with maintenance of mowing, and it's kind of like the 24-hour lot. We said you can still use the 24-hour lot, but you guys sure ought to plow the snow out of there, because if you don't want to plow the snow out of there, we'll just put a fence up and say no parking here, because we own it, right?
Yeah.
But we're being good partners. We're cooperative that way. Mr. Riley, apropos of, we're talking about softball fence. And we now can put it up a permanent fence. But if we rush and do that, we haven't laser graded it. We want to put in irrigation. We want to do it right. We want to do it one time.
Right.
I know that's correct because you and I have talked, but can you explain that process? Like, they're gonna have to do a little bit of making sure it's flat and
Yeah.
stops right at the fence.
Right now, the way the softball field is graded. For example, if the edge of the infield skin and the outfield grass is over, so we actually get a lot of washout in a couple different spots. It has to be continually filled back in. Based off of how the water drains off of the infield. In addition to that, there's a larger amount of aggregate there than what there would be for a standard high school softball field. So we want to be able to add grass in front of the dugouts and actually take the amount of aggregate, because now when it actually gets drug, it's kind of like a bowl effect. Because if you continually go the same direction and you go from the inside out, there's a lot of aggregate to the outside, and it's lowered on the inside, which can affect its drainage and then how the water actually flows. So in order to do that, with the outfield being higher than the infield, we need to come in and be able to laser grade the surface. We have to redo, there's irrigation there, but we have to redo the heads when that happens and occurs, which will also put us in a long-term better position with outfield fence, making sure that everything's going in the correct direction for long-term. Otherwise, from a maintenance standpoint, we'll have to go back and redo some fence work and some other things if we rush to that. But the hope is to be able to do it, would be to do it this fall. In that direction.
But the city doesn't have a need for that softball field anymore, for that field.
They may, but we're gonna bring it to high school softball specifications. As opposed to the other part. In terms of the fall, they're well aware that we know that we want to be able to take that time to be able to do it in fall. From a programming standpoint, it should not negatively impact.
Okay, so I was in those conversations with them, a lot of conversations about, we'd like to continue to use them until we don't need them anymore. But I just want to make sure we weren't all of a sudden putting a fence out that's too short and they can't play softball anymore.
Yeah.
And go against what our agreement was with them.
Right, that field tends to not be used for any of the modified or slow pitch. Because the fence is far shorter than diamond number 2 as well. So when they do program, especially for the fall programming, they tend to use diamond number 2, because that is not the preferred place for them to be able to program.
Thank you.
The other, I think, big ticket items were the interactive TVs to replace smart boards and TVs in the classroom, and that's at the elementary level. So I don't know how much the board wants to look at this, have explanation of each one. Last year we had a provision where we kind of improved it in general, and then anything over 50,000 came back for separate approval with the board, which is more than fine as well.
And it looks like we're still waiting on numbers on a few items.
Waiting on numbers for a few items.
Mhm. I appreciate the effort to help manage these funds strategically for future projects in mind, and I think that's really important. I also think it's really important I'm thrilled to see some softball improvements, now that we own that land and can invest in our female athletes and amenities that they're using. That's long overdue and great. Any other questions?
One thing that I'm just curious about is the mud jacking in the auditorium.
I haven't talked to Greg lately. It settled, then maybe we didn't need it. And now I look to Mr. Riley, because I think maybe you had a conversation that it does need some mud jacking.
So if you remember, prior to the renovation, we had a certain amount of cracks and some other stuff, so we did come back in, when that started to happen, And the performance is actually pretty good, but I think it was done probably about 2010, maybe. And now just in the last 6 months, we've started to see some of those same cracks start to separate again. So
Mhm,
just in that area.
mhm.
Where was that? I remember when we did the mudjacking before, but I'm not familiar with where in the auditorium the issues were.
Primarily, I would say along the north wall. So if you walk down the hallway that goes to the back, the scene shop and some other stuff, that's where a few of the cracks are noticeable, as well as the main, when you come in from the auditorium entry to, you can see the doorway, that's where a second place where a lot of the settling happened. A lot of sand base underneath there, which is solid in a lot of different ways. Remember when that project was completed, going to go a little bit deeper with some of the footings, and they actually had to go wider, so then it was going to be some other stuff challenges.
And I should probably add that these are usually called summer projects because we do them in the summer, but we really do them year round, so I would call it the capital projects. This isn't the only money we'll spend out, like if there's a breakage or something that needs to be fixed, we just don't have time to plan those out, and that's why you have part of your reserve. And if some kind of HVAC system needs help, you do that when it comes up.
Yeah, and I know that there's a section of deferred items, but I would encourage you to have just a more forecast into the future, or just a wider scope plan, just to know what's coming in the next couple of years, just to plan thoughtfully rather than react, I think would be helpful too. But this is a really good list.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what this process has always been. It's kind of, here's the dream list, which will become the must-do list when things start deteriorating further. So it's good to be able to look ahead.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I view the buses. You can put buses off and save maybe $350,000. If you don't buy 2 buses, and then all of a sudden you get behind, and kind of like I got to Central City, and I honestly don't think we had a bus that was newer than like 14, 15 years old. So then you have to buy buses every year. That's not any fun.
Are one of these buses to be spec'd out as an LP bus?
Yeah, he's looking at the 84 as an LP bus. And then we would, at the same time, because it did bus delivery, I don't know, defer to Kathy, but bus delivery maybe takes 8 months. And is that fast for a bus delivery from the time we order it?
It's been over 12.
Yeah, so if we know we're getting a new bus, that's one other thing we can look at is possibly looking at the Decorah grant or the Volkswagen grant. But we could also just start buying propane as well too. Because we typically buy a bus every year, so.
I think another thing to note on here is the tennis courts, which we are deferring. And then it's $50,000 on there for resurfacing. And of course, if we're gonna build new tennis courts, we're not going to do that. There are some pretty big cracks on the tennis courts, so I think just to kind of point that out, that if we didn't move the tennis courts, there's ongoing maintenance and costs to having them where they are too. And they're definitely at that point where they need to be resurfaced.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. One of the things we'll try to add to this list is just all the John Klein stuff that we kind of put off, and I would put tennis courts in there. And I've talked to people who say, well, we fundraised for those, and I don't know if they realize that you can't just fundraise one time
Right.
and then they'll be good forever.
Mhm.
Right, there is maintenance that you have to resurface, and I've heard from the tennis players and the pickleball players that there are cracks.
Right, definitely. We replay the cracks.
We play the cracks?
Replay them.
Oh, we replay.
I
Okay.
don't think the tennis players do though, when they play their matches.
You remember any fundraising happening on the tennis courts?
No,
No, I don't either.
Okay. Well, that's
There
fine.
was a 50-50 split with the city.
With the city,
Yeah, I don't.
but, no.
Okay. Well, I know,
But
I
if
know
they
he
want
told me
to
that, so I'll
contribute now,
ask
they
him.
surely can.
Yeah,
so right here-
I'll let him know.
Yeah,
when I
let 'em
yeah.
know.
Oh,
With the interactive TVs, it says that we're doing one building per year. Which one's coming first, John Klein or Carrie Lee?
I'm not sure what one per year means. Where are you seeing that, Doug?
If you select the actual box, interactive TV,
Oh,
replace
yeah.
smart boards. So
I'm sorry.
that's okay. One building per year, JC, CLE, so John Klein, Carrie Lee. Which one is the?
I'm gonna look at Sean.
The original plan was one per year. That's why it says that from last year. The hope would be to do the elementary this year. So it'd be John and Terry Lee, the west side of the last year.
So this is all the elementaries. Okay.
So we'll do away with smart boards altogether.
The smart boards and the TVs would both go away and they'd be replaced with one interactive TV. We've been demoing a couple different versions, couple different manufacturers, 3 different manufacturers. And we've gone back to the smartboard brand, but they don't make the smartboard for themselves anymore. It's all interactive TVs. And so projectors, the TVs, they'll be replaced. They're almost 13 years old.
Sean, assuming things happen in November, these interactive TVs can be taken out, transitioned over in future years.
We don't need any action on that.
We, this is for approval. Yeah. So other questions or are we ready for?
I will
Motion.
move to approve the capital projects listing as prioritized.
With that dollar limit. There's been a dollar limit on 50,000 or something.
Yeah,
So that,
You could certainly add that to the,
I think that's just a protocol that's in place all the time.
oh, is it 50? Is it 50,000? Oh, yeah,
I think it's 25,000.
I think it is too.
We just set this at 50,000. So,
So if
so as a clarification, I don't know if we've even had a second to Ron's motion, but
I think if you, the motion should include that, if nothing else happens, so there, it also need to approve it without it, right? It's your motion.
My motion is simply to approve everything on the list that is priorities 1, 2, and 3. Which includes several items which are significantly below that and a few that are above that.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I don't think we can do that legally. 'Cause we can't carte blanche, or can we carte blanche said, like the roof's $1 million project, we voted on that.
yeah, we, of course, we voted on that.
So if we have another project that comes up that's $150,000, we would not vote on a new bus.
Well, if you've approved a bus for 150 and it costs 149, you technically approved the bus. I mean, again, this is board, like, would it be illegal? No, because you've approved a bus for 150. The problem would be currently if it's 151,000, then I bring it back because it's over the number that we estimated. And these are estimates, and they could be high, they could be low. A lot of times this is us or Greg or Sean or Adam calling vendors. So, but like we know what the student computer lease is, that's a dollar amount. So I guess it really is board preference. I don't want to do something that the board's not comfortable with. So it worked okay to bring the stuff back last year. But to your question, would it be illegal? I don't think it would be illegal.
Well, I don't like I don't think, you're not gonna do anything that's not best for the school, but I don't think we should, we don't know nothing about upgraded radios and we're gonna authorize $150,000 without knowing anything about it. I'm not comfortable with it. You know, I think that would be something that, and I'm just using that for an example.
Sure.
But the computers, student leases, $360, absolutely, we've already been committed to that, we have to do it, but. I think we used to do this all at once, and we didn't like that we did it, and we moved away from it, and we put a limit on it, now we're just kind of going back to what we were before, I think. If we just authorize this as a current launch. Listing of all the things in 1, 2, and 3, I don't think that makes sense, but we can sure go on.
And from your recollection, was the limit 25,000 or was it
I think
50?
it might have been 50 on this. The law says, I think law is 25,000, right?
Board policies, right?
Board policy should be like that.
So Tim had the authority.
That's right,
to-
that's right, that's lower than what we can buy things up to 100 and what? 100 and some,
139,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, board policy, you set your limit on what you authorized me to spend. I mean, literally my authority in Central City was 5,000.
Yeah.
So I was used to taking things to the board all the time.
Sure.
And
So that,
what,
we have $25,000 board authority as.
and what we're saying for capital projects,
We're gonna raise it to unlimited, well, to whatever the gross amount.
yeah, the limit would be what's here.
I think the differential is the $25,000 figure was originally so that we aren't approving buying copy paper
No question.
or LP
100%.
gas fill up, whatever. It's like we don't review, you know, every time we buy highlighters for the high school office. The increase to 50,000, I think, was relating to purchases that, you know, if it's 50,000 or less, we could approve them as part of the projects. If it's over 50,000, it would require a separate approval. I think that's where the 25 and the 50 came in. But as I look at most of the expenditures that are over 50, they've already been approved. For example, the save bond payments, well, yeah, we have to pay those. We adopted the resolutions, we borrowed the funds. The buses, I guess we typically have, you know, approved separately. Other than that, yeah, and the computer lease I view as something that it's custom, we always do that.
I would say a quick look at it, there's about 6 items that we would have to bring to the board that aren't a lease that we've signed. We have to bring the 2 buses, which I'm sure we would do anyway. We would have to bring the safety rigging for the auditorium. We'd have to bring the upgraded radios, previously mentioned softball laser, and then the interactive TVs. So, again, that, I don't think, like, that probably means maybe we get it to the board, if there's a time thing. It's a new meeting, you know, for the board to have a discussion or a 5:30 meeting, but it's a short meeting. We might have a couple of those. Hopefully we have one with contract certification, so. I don't think it's a big thing, and
As a practical matter, I think it would be, you know, good practice to approve the buses, even though, you know, we go through them here. This is a big listing, which shows us all kinds of things and gives us kind of a big picture of where we're going. So probably a good point to take those 6 things and make sure that they are approved separately. But I think the concept of the summer projects, capital projects, is basically to give us an idea of where these funds are going, and also just to acknowledge where they've already gone, essentially based upon the bond payments and things like that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can you read back?
I tend to agree with Ryan, but. So would we vote on this at this,
What's
if
the
you're
motion?
not going to amend your motion, then would you vote on that and then we'd have a second motion if that didn't pass?
Okay, let's take another crack at this. I move that we approve the general concept that is specified in the document, prioritizing different items and that we offer final and formal approval of every item which is either previously committed or less than $50,000. i.e., I'm moving that we approve the computers, paying the bonds, and all the items which are less than $50,000.
I'll second that.
And still a 1 to 3.
Yes. So that would leave buses, which would require approval later when we're actually buying them. It would require, or, yeah,
I highlighted in the yellow if it helps.
the student computer lease. Oh, yes, thank you.
Good call.
The safety rigging, the radio project, et cetera. But the big idea is that we don't have to come back seeking formal approval for the 3 copiers.
Or the middle school sound system.
Yeah. Or the bond payments, or the those other items, computers.
So after discussion, the motion has been,
We will want to note that the Decorah Middle School furniture is over that. And so highlighting that as well, Tim.
the motion has been amended and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try.
Good luck with that.
I'll work on that. I know that motion down.
I asked for a clarification point. So we're setting aside the 6 or 7 things that are over $50,000. Are we also giving approval to begin working towards, finding out how much this bus is gonna actually cost? We're not saying we're not going to do that. We're just saying move forward, but we need to approve that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, you'll get a invoice or a proposal from a quote, thank you, from school bus sales that'll have the specs of the bus.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the second reading of code 606.5, student field trips and excursions. So this is the second reading.
So this is the second reading, so just to recap where we're at, this has been on your registration, there's been a click the box. You go on the field trip, and that didn't really match, so we were using that, like, if we were going on a field trip, we were using that permission. To, if a parent clicked the box, my child can go on the field trip, they would go on the field trip, and we didn't have to have a second written permission slip like back in the day. But our board policy didn't really reflect that, so we just added in that the language that talked about can be given online. So, and I'm looking at written permission will be required. We changed that, so now I have to find
The new version.
the new version. I apologize, but so the discussion was, I think I just had the track changes off from last month. The discussion was, are we comfortable with parents with that practice? Because that's kind of how it's been in practice. And so we had a discussion last month about that.
So the current version says written parental permission.
Or consent given during the online registration. That didn't show up when I copied it.
Okay,
So I will. Written permission or online or consent giving to online registration. So in this scenario, parent, if they do the online registration and then the field trip next week is to effigy mounds, parents get notified through the newsletter, email, however the classroom teacher does that. And if they want their child removed, then they have to notify us to remove their child. But because we got the consent ahead of time, they're consenting to field trips. So. And that's again, that's a practice we've had in place and we're trying to match it with board policy.
with the understanding that parents are always given the details, communicate, the teacher or whoever's taking them on the field trip would communicate details to them prior. to-
Yeah, we don't just
Put them on
go,
the bus and go.
yeah, we don't take them to Des Moines for something and
Right.
then not have notified them what we're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
And as I understand it too, I think the other purpose of this is to allow electronic parental consent. So when Johnny gets to school and the field trip is getting ready to go, but he left his piece of paper at home, mom can send an email saying, yes, it's okay, without having to drive in from the country to drop off the piece of paper.
Yeah, I guess. It says written parental permission, so I could even modify it at the second reading and say written including email.
Yeah.
That's easy enough to do.
I think written would also encompass email. It's a digital form of writing.
Mhm, I agree. Yeah, I think it's fine as is.
Mhm.
I don't know if any of the elementary staff has any thoughts or,
I think it's just nice that you're going to do that because as high school kids, my kids kept bringing home forms for me to sign. And I'm like, I already signed that you can go on these field trips. So eliminating the papers that are coming home that have to be signed to go on a field trip was, I thought, the whole point of having it on the electronic from the first place. So it's nice to hear that you're making that change so there will be no paper forms coming home.
And maybe being consistent throughout the district, because
Yeah.
some people sent home the paper form still, but other people maybe just said, hey, they signed the box, so I'm just gonna notify them. So it's an opportunity for us to clarify.
And I suppose that would just be nice for the, whoever takes those to let the teachers know who doesn't have permission to go on a field trip, so they're aware of that. If
And that
who
doesn't mean
doesn't,
that they can't go. It just means that they didn't do consent during the online
Yeah.
registration.
So then you'd have to email them or figure out a different way to.
and this is why we review policies every 5 years.
Okay, so this is the second reading and we've had discussion. Unless there's further questions or discussion, I'll welcome a motion.
I move that we accept the student field trip and excursions as written.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the approval of our regular agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved. First, we'll consider approval of consent items and minutes from April 8th, 15th, and 29th. Bills and personnel.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as published.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is open forum communication from the public. We have a lot of people in attendance tonight. Yeah, come on up. The goal, I'm just gonna read a statement before you begin. You can come up and sign the sheet while I read the statement. It is the goal of the district to provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum for every student in the Decorah Community School District. The open forum is time set aside for the board to hear comments from the public. Comments are not limited to items or topics on the agenda, but are limited to matters within the board's authority and are not to exceed more than 3 minutes in length. As per Iowa code, the board cannot discuss matters posted on the agenda. Also, please remember that comments are being made in a public forum Any comments made that are considered to be inflammatory may be subject to legal action. So you have 3 minutes. I'm gonna time on my phone and I'll just give you a little,
Okay,
I'll give you a little wave if you're getting close.
no problem. I wrote it out. So, Dr. Cronin and members of the Decorah Community School Board. My name is Jim Martin Schramm. Karen and I have lived in Decorah for 31 years. Both of our boys, Joel and Joshua, received an excellent education in the Decorah schools. Thank you for your dedication to education and the well-being of the children of Decorah. The main purpose of my remarks this evening is to encourage you to design and build a new elementary school that is as energy efficient as possible and, if possible, to power it with renewable energy. The U.S. Energy Information Administration estimates that buildings account for nearly 40% of the energy consumed in the United States. The cost to heat, cool, and power these buildings is a significant operating expense over the typical 50-year minimum useful life of a building. Those of us who use natural gas to heat our homes know that the price of natural gas has fluctuated significantly over the last 10 years. As customers of Alliant Energy, we have experienced annual increases in the price of electricity that have significantly outpaced the average annual rate of inflation, which was 2.48% from 2012 to 2022. And now Alliant has proposed the largest rate increase in its history. Given these facts, I encourage you to work with your architect to design a new school building that not only meets the 2012 State Energy Code, but exceeds it and strives to be just as energy efficient as possible. Every dollar you invest in energy efficiency today will pay dividends in the future via lower annual energy operating costs. Another way to be good stewards of public funds is to design a facility that utilizes energy from the earth on the sun. I'm sure you've seen the solar arrays at Luther and on commercial and nonprofit buildings in and around Decorah, and perhaps you know that Luther's Baker Village is entirely heated and cooled by geothermal energy from the earth and powered by the sun. The owners of these buildings are making these investments because they can reduce expensive energy costs over time. For example, solar projects on general service rate plans have a 7 to 8 year payback. This is because for a limited time, nonprofit organizations can now tap the financial value of federal tax credits, which in your case would reduce the cost of a solar array by 30% and the cost of a geothermal system by 40%. We are fortunate to have several excellent solar installers in Decorah and in our region that offer some of the lowest installation costs in our country. We are also fortunate to have the Winneshiek Energy District in our backyard, which through its association with the Clean Energy Districts of Iowa and the city of Decorah has federal grant funding to provide free expert engineering services to nonprofit entities like the school district who are interested in pursuing investments in energy efficiency and renewable energy. I would happily discuss these possibilities further with the school board's facilities committee. Thank you for considering my comments and suggestions.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Okay, next is our presentation, which is the Extended Learning Program in Career and Work-Based Learning at Decorah High School.
All right, well, are we okay to sit or would you like us to?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Yeah, you can sit.
I'm
We were
here.
hoping for some kind of, Jim,
Yes,
if you don't mind, could you leave that copy?
you bet. I actually just emailed it to all of you.
Oh,
okay.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's some hot links at the bottom.
Okay.
That's right.
They won't work on paper very well. Thank
I'd be happy to stay the rest of the meeting, but.
you.
Sustainability Commission.
Got it.
Cheers. Thank you, everybody.
Anyway, we are the ELP team. I'm Carrie O'Hara and I teach kindergarten through 4th grade extended learning program, which is I spend half of my day at John Klein and half of my day at Carrie Lee. I've been teaching this program for 7 years And we have made a few changes. You'll notice when you're looking at the handbook, we have a kindergarten through second grade handbook, and then we have a 3 through 12 handbook. And that's because we kind of changed things up K2 with not formal identification, but more fluid and talent development kind of groups. And then once they get it at the end of second grade, they'll take a COGAT assessment, cognitive reasoning abilities assessment, that will then determine, along with others, other data points, if they can be qualified for the ELP program in third and fourth grade. So it's been a joy. And so if there's any questions when you come about that, and we're happy to answer some of those. And I do have to share this very quick thing, just because it's going to make you laugh. And I'm all about laughter. So today, this is, the third grade teachers always do this balloon activity where they have all these helium balloons, and they bring them all around to the classroom teachers, and they hang them on our doors, and they bring them in. And I had one of my little ELP friends bring this to me today. Dear Mrs. O'Hara, thank you for helping all of the smart kids by actually giving them a challenge. It's a big BIG help. Your friend, and I won't say his name, but I just think that's quite enjoyable, and that, you know, you can tell that these children are really enjoying our programs and need that program to help them with some of their talents. So
I am Dana Hogan, and I took over the middle school position from Carol this year. And so in the fifth grade setting, I'm definitely in the classroom. So I've been in social studies, I've been in science, I've been in reading, I've been in writing, working with different students, sometimes parallel teaching, sometimes I take groups, sometimes we're team teaching, but getting to know all of the kids, because by the time they're in sixth grade, the ELP is more in a pull out situation, in addition to a lot of other opportunities for students. By the time they get into seventh grade, it's a pull out situation for seventh grade and eighth grade. Mock trial is an opportunity for students to participate, that is mainly the ELP students who participate in that, as well as other opportunities. So in the middle school, it is formal as well as informal. Sixth grade, I've tried to offer creative writing opportunities. Again, it's some very identified students, some students who are right at that edge that we're diversifying things, trying to give them those opportunities. But it's a great time to challenge kids in ways that they want to be challenged. And so I think that Carrie's elementary student kind of captured what a lot of the ELP students want. They want to learn and they want to be challenged. And so that's what we're working toward doing. And then
I'm Allison Love student, and I did not do my homework and go back and look how many years I've been in a position. Thinking of students I've worked with, I think it's been at least 15 or close to 15 years in the high school ELP position. At the high school level, things are a little different because I am not an expert in enough areas to challenge our high school students and give them what they need in all areas. So the program is less of me pulling out individual students. And I break it into different categories. Big part of my job is high school student advising. So making sure that the identified students know that I'm there, and I'm reaching out to them if they want advice about how to make choices. If they're feeling overwhelmed, sometimes that advice is, I really want to take Chinese at Luther. How can I make that work in my schedule? And I'm able to look at that with a little bit different lens than just going and talking to Mr. Truan in the guidance office. Another big part of my job is the identification piece. We're required by the state to have an identification process. Our process involves teacher input, multiple assessment inputs over multiple years. And we've developed a system to try to pull all of that together and do the best job we can, still recognizing that students change, students can have a bad day. And so there needs to be those human eyes on that as well. The numbers aren't ever going to tell the full story. And I help with the identification at the middle school as well, putting together spreadsheets to help ease the look at all of the data on all of the students. I also, one other part of my job is advocacy, talking to the other teachers in the building, trying to help advocate for students and their needs for additional challenge, while recognizing that as high schoolers, they have the right to make choices and they need to learn to make choices as well. So it isn't, really required that you have to take only AP classes or anything like that, but it's making students aware of options and making sure that staff members feel supported in offering options. And then sometimes, independent study and online class oversight, is something that has in the past been more of my position. This year, I actually don't have any contract time during the school day that's working on this. I'm a math teacher and a computer science teacher during the school day, and my ELP position is all outside of the school day. And so there isn't as much of that oversight of independent study courses because that has to happen during the school day, and I just don't have that. I think welcome questions. We weren't exactly sure what you said. The changes to the handbook. There were some law changes that changed things. So at the high school level, one in particular was that students used to have to be identified to take a college course as a 9th or 10th grader. The state changed that. So then we're updating the handbook to reflect what.
And there were a couple of things that won't be practiced, that were identified, so we removed those to show you exactly what is happening, not what used to.
In all of our handbooks and processes, we'd like to review them every 5 years. And so this was our 5th year of having the handbooks in place. So the ladies met during PLC time and did all of those updates.
And forgive me, I do have one question, and forgive me if you already told us this, but it's not the case where Carrie is testing students early in elementary, and then they're just like shuttled through the program. You're at each stage, you're re-evaluating, reassessing, and making sure that it's a good fit all the way through.
Yes, it looks very different at K2 also. Can you help with that?
Yep, we use what's called PETS. We call it PETS, but it's an acronym for Primary Educational Thinking Skills. And what's really nice about that is I get to go into all kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms 4 times a year. And everyone in the classroom gets to do a challenging thinking activity. So we're doing everybody, it's universal. And then after that lesson is done, whatever thinking skill it might be on, the teacher and I kind of collaborate and decide which child or children kind of stood out in her classroom that might have an opportunity to have some more enrichment time with me outside of class. And so then I pull them out and I work with them for about 7 weeks, and then I repeat that same cycle. So it's really nice because I feel like it's more of a focus on their talent development a little bit more than, and also we know that kids bloom and blossom at different times throughout the year. Some kids come in reading in kindergarten and we think that they're, super high, but yet they are missing maybe some of those creative pieces. So it gives a lot of children different opportunities to come in and work on different thinking skills. And it's been very, very effective and very promising so far. I've actually really enjoyed it, so.
And at the 412 levels, we are seeking teacher input by the classroom teachers each year, pulling in the new test data each year. And we are basically printing information about each student each year. Yeah.
So there is a possibility for students to be added in any year along the way, right? For services.
And there are students that if they aren't identified in our process, there are parents can nominate students to be relooked at if they weren't caught with sort of a test score nomination as kind of the baseline, as well as students can self-nominate that for consideration for opportunities as well.
And also new students that, enroll into the district. We always try to keep them on the forefront as well, so.
So Allison, with your schedule change a little bit this year, with you not having a separate ELP period, do you feel like you're able to do what you have done in the past and what you think is the most important aspects of the ELP program at the high school?
I think that it's important that we sort of adapt as we go. I've had conversations with Mr. Hurst already about there were some things that were part of this, especially once we get our winter test scores, and I'm running all of that where it was very overwhelming this year to try to get that done without time. And I think there are skills in working with that data that are used and useful for people beyond the ELP realm in terms of other coursework. So we are working on a plan to provide some additional time for sort of data analysis and pulling together to help me be able to do this position and help others. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
And we All are of not you. the whole program. Without the classroom teachers, we would not be able to do it. We are seeking their input. They are coming to us. We're just there to support them. It's just great to hear about the whole cycle.
We feel like it works really well, and we're, you know, we really enjoy our PLC time together and getting unit to talk about the program and keep up on the latest things that are happening and care about your former students as they move on, you know, and how they're doing. I really enjoy that, so.
Any other questions?
You brought up students taking college classes potentially. Approximately how many students are taking college level classes while they're in high school?
It depends on what you are defining as the college level courses, in terms of
Fair, yes.
AP, the dual enrollment courses through NICC. I will say our schedule is not very conducive to taking classes at Luther on campus. That was one of the things we knew when
Which
we
makes
changed to
complete
our
sense.
modified block, and that was something we debated, we considered, and the benefits outweighed sort of that cost with sort of other options available. So I don't know that I have a number that I can give you. I think we have a few students going to NICC and taking courses in person each year. Mr. Truen may have better.
Yeah, there's probably 20 students that go to NICC in some way, could be in the summer, could be during the year. There's usually only 3, 4, 5 go up to Luther, but then our in-house stuff is the big stuff, you know, and that's in the hundreds when you talk speech, comp, farm business management, and then all the AP courses. So it used to be you had to be in the ELP program to take it as a 9th or 10th grader. The state changed that law a year ago, and now we get some students choosing to do it as freshmen and sophomores. So I'm sure that data exists somewhere as far as the number of credits earned. It's a vast amount, but in some schools, you know, the goal is to give them 2 years at a time while they're in school. That's not necessarily our goal. Some students can get to that, but we want to get the experience that the kid needs at each grade in each level. So some will come out with 0 credits, some will come out with 30 or 40 credits, and depending on what their needs are.
We appreciate all that you do. I know when I look at ISAS scores and I see that, you know, 30+% of the students are scoring in advanced levels, and we can see that in Decorah we have a real need for this programming. So it's appreciate that all that you work so hard to provide quality programming.
You know, firsthand.
I see a few faces that are in the presentation.
Yeah, so there was actually 2 separate presentations. I don't know if that was clear on how it was listed, but there was an ELP presentation and there's the decap, which is what a lot of these people are here for. So
Okay.
I don't want to cut you guys off.
Oh,
here,
yeah.
So,
No.
okay. All right. Hi, I'm Brad Hurst. Most of you, I think, know who I am. I'm the principal of the high school, but you might have some people that you don't know. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. A lot of them are over here, starting with Mr. Truon.
Pat Truon, high school counselor, but I do spend quite a bit of time with the DCAP program as well.
Maddie Putnam, Wichita County Development and Tourism, and then also NICC.
That job coach is what?
Yeah, college and career coach, kind of as a partnership.
I'm Brody Courtney. I'm a senior at Decorah High School.
I'm Monica Burns, I'm also a senior at Decorah High School.
And Bridget Sorhoff back here will be our second counselor next year, so she's kind of learning this a little bit. I'm gonna kind of start us off here. Sean, are you running the slides or, okay, perfect. So if you want to go to the next one. basically what I wanted to do a little bit here is, you know, you might remember doing this last year, the state is now requiring, every year, before June first, for the high school and really the school district to approve what's called a just their career and academic plan. And the board actually has to approve it. We have to then submit the minutes of the board meeting, to the state, that basically says, yes, we've run our, plan by you, you endorse the plan. So this will become an annual exercise now in May. So that's kind of what we're here for. You'll see later in your agenda that there's actually an action item for that thing. What we didn't want to do is if you actually took some time to read 9B, the DCAP plan, it's about 32 pages. We felt we wanted to spare you going page by page on what that report actually is, but hopefully you've had some time to review it. What I wanted to do today and what we're going to do collectively is just kind of tell a bit of a story of where we're at as a high school and where we'd like to go. So I was leading off here. Some of you may have seen, if you read the Viking this week or followed it all, we were ranked number 4 this year. And that's, I know, a dip down from the number 2 ranking we had last year. I always like to tell people, like, you don't want to give yourself too much credit when you're too high and so forth. And really what it ends up doing is it's a magazine. So a magazine can sort of decide, how do I want to rank a high school? And they rank the high schools very, very much on AP tests, participation and AP tests, success. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also want to go back to Mr. Truan's point. A good number of our students complete courses through NICC. And that doesn't really get factored in anything here. Our test scores remain very strong. Our graduation rate remains very strong. Really what kind of happened last year compared to previous years, we didn't have as many kids that took an AP test, or completed it. And that's going to fluctuate from year to year. You've got other schools, the schools ahead of us, Iowa City West. I don't know if anybody will ever catch them. If you look at how many kids they have doing AP, they've kind of gone all in on AP. And again, it's not how the state ranks this is how a magazine ranks this. So I just want to make sure to let people know that. But still very good rankings, still something to be proud of. You can see there kind of how it breaks down and how the different things go into place. The schools that were ahead of us this year, I think, were Gilbert, the new schools, Gilbert, and I think it was Capella. Those were, and they were just above us, so it was really close. But we're hopeful this year. We've got, I think, a little bit more AP participation, and we'll see how it kind of ends up factoring in. But we might be back where we were last year. It is going to ebb and flow a little bit solely based on AP participation rates, because I think our data still continues to be very strong. To that point, you can see here our 5-year historic ACT data. Obviously, we came out of a pandemic, and what often happened in many schools across the country is AP test score or ACT test scores actually went down. So the average ACT composite score is right around 19.5. And if you see here, Decorah, actually our numbers continue to rise, well above the average. So as of last year, our ACT test score composite average was 25.7, which is phenomenal. That's the average composite score of our high school kids. So unless anybody's like, well, man, we're number 4 in the state. I think there's not too many schools in the state or in the country that can boast a 25.7 composite score for their ACTs. So we're doing very well there. If you want to go to the next one, we have our Iowa School Performance Profile. So this is actually how the state ranks high schools and really all schools. They have a performance profile. A lot of things go into it. But of note is that we are what's called a high performing school. And if you count up the number of high schools in Iowa that have that designation, only 22 high schools in the state of Iowa are highly performing. So we're in pretty rarefied area there as well. And that's by the state's metrics, which is, as I'll get into, a little different than the metrics of a magazine. So what you'll see here, I'm not going to go data point by data point, but I think what I would probably point you to is the dot somewhere in the middle of each of these bar graphs represents kind of the average performance of schools. And then you can see here, obviously, in every case but one, we're above that average, which certainly helps our overall high performing designation. Talking about achievement on standardized tests, we're talking about growth, which that's something it's really important to kind of designate and note. There's a lot of schools that have high achievement, but you've actually got to make a year's growth. and to the point of our ELP and to commend some of what they do, it really helps to ensure that every kid makes a year's growth. So if you're already pretty advanced, making a year's growth is hard, if you're already at the top of the top. So you can see there, even in our growth, we're doing above the state average. So we're really doing well with what we have. And I commend our teachers and across the board for getting us there. There's just a little bit more here on college readiness. I'm going to go to the next one. So here's kind of, you want to, as a high performing school, you don't want to just keep patting yourself on the back and just, okay, we're perfect. There's nowhere we can go. What the state actually has done in the last couple of years is they've really prioritized, and they're starting to really factor in other performance measures beyond standardized test scores and some of the things that traditionally would be used to rank schools. So now really coming into play here is a lot more with career and technical education, often called CTE. And you can see here the other side of the coin a little bit. So we've got a lot of kids that are doing college level courses. They're knocking out of the park with ACT scores. They're taking lots of AP classes and NICC classes, and our growth is good and our achievement's good. Where's an area where we could grow and go? CTE participation. So a lot of times what ends up happening is, for a lot of reasons, students elect, especially in their junior and senior year, really focus on getting as much college credit as they can. Financially, that makes a lot of sense if you're planning to go to a four-year college, because you can save a lot of money that way and you can kind of set yourself up for success down the road. Not a lot of CTE courses. There are some, but there's not a lot of them where you can earn college credit. So our CTE participation rates relative to other peer districts and kind of on average is not as high. You kind of understand why it's not as high, but it's still something we need to figure out. How do we get some of that? So, you can see in every case here with career technical education participation by program, by students, by different demographic groups, that we're below the state average for sure. And so this is an area where we're going to continue to try to focus, and this actually kind of sets up then what the rest of this presentation will be about, is this idea of how do we get more students to do more with work-based learning and career-based learning, and to see what's out there, without, totally selling the ship and not doing some of the great things that we continue to do with credits and opportunities for kids academically. So one of the things that you approved as a board last fall was what are called our district team. And so if you want to go to the next slide, actually so you can kind of see the board minutes on that. These are the people that are actually in our CTE team that you approved in November. We've got to have people representing each strand that we offer. So a school is required to offer 4 strands in CTE in order to be accredited, to be able to hand out a diploma and all the things that go into being accredited. So our 4 strands are agriculture, business, industrial technology, and culinary. So you can see within each of those strands, we have different people within our community, business or leaders, as well as students in each group. That's another requirement as well. We've got CT representatives from the community. We've got people from NICC, and of course, we've got faculty members and staff members in our building. So that contingent represents our CTE advisory committee. As another requirement of the state, we have a fall CTE advisory meeting where we kind of serve, a breakfast in our culinary room. We talk about current needs, how to work together as a community, and what the community can do for us, what we can do for the community. We recently just had one in the spring as well. All right, so now there's a lot of acronyms in education. If you haven't picked up on them, there's going to continue to be more. This one we often call DCAP, but it's District's Career and Academic Plan. It's a requirement that every district submits this plan and has their board approve it, like I said earlier, every year. All right, now this is so illegible, it's not even funny. I didn't know how to best do this, but what I will show you is this was our DCAP rubric and how it was scored last year. So last year, I was actually a part of this process, so I can speak a little bit to it. What we did is we all met in Elkader, and this was like the trial or pilot year, where basically we were able to score in groups other schools' DCAP plans. So we looked at their DCAP plans and all the different sizes and shapes and variations. We used this rubric and we gave feedback and scored other schools as kind of a formative or piece. So this wasn't really counted like it's going to be counted going forward. It was more like, here's where the things you could get better. So without making everybody squint to try to read it, what you'll see is that within each one of them, there's different comments in red. And if we go to the next slide, the big thing that you'll want to know is, well, how did we score? Well, we scored 27 out of 36, which isn't terrible. It was the first time we had been scored and done a plan like this. But where we can kind of have opportunities for improvement, we're in work-based learning. We didn't have a lot of opportunities. So there's other schools that have lots of kids that do work parts of their day or all of their day. And we were kind of missing in that area. And so that was an area we kind of talked about focusing on. So really, it was also kind of exclusive to CTE. So if you weren't in agriculture or business or culinary arts or any of those things, you may not really have had a path or a way to do a job shadow, to go out in the community to learn and get some context for the content you're learning. And so it was just a little harder. So that was another area where we figured out, how can we do more to expose students, whether they're in CTE courses or not, to careers that are in the community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Truitt.
So, Maddie Putnam and I will end up tag teaming on the next few slides. So with that score, we made goals. And the goals you see listed here, these are the 4 items we tried to take action on. One was to make more connections with local regional employers for students and teachers. That's where Maddie will be coming into focus in the great work that she did this year. More work-based learning experiences for each student, not just CTE students. And a work-based learning experience really involves 4 areas. We had a slide last year for it. I don't think we have one this year. One, it's just awareness of careers, awareness of a wide variety of careers. So we're trying to expose students with possibilities. That could occur in the classroom, and it does occur in the classroom. It occurs K-12 in the classroom, but trying to make them aware of all the career possibilities. One of the areas of study this year was AI. Shannon Quandall made an incredible in-service day for us, and some tech madness you may have seen. But we want to make students more aware of AI and how that's going to affect their job world. But it's in many other areas too. The second part is exploration. We'd like them to have some hands-on things where they're exploring different careers, hopefully careers of their choosing. And then it's preparation and training. Preparation and training is where we really dive in and we get into it in the classroom, but we also get into it in the community. And that's where Brody and Annika are going to be part of it. So we want to expand those opportunities so that every student got a much bigger experience than they did last year. And you'll see that how we did that. The next one, teachers know students' post-secondary desires. I did 2 different surveys, not survey, excuse me, it was a form, a questionnaire, where we asked students, what are their career desires? Have they done any job shadows? Have they done any internships? And then we shared that with the classroom teachers. We also took a form and the students were able to respond to, if a person from this company were to come in, or a cosmetologist were to come in, or an engineer to come in, would you want to listen to them in a flex time? And then, so we created the spreadsheet, and then we put kids into flex times to meet their desires so that they could ask questions of an expert in the field. We also did some downtown tours, things like that. So more work-based learning experiences. And then the teachers need to know what those secondary desires are. We shared the forms with them. We wanted them to review the forms on their own. And we would love for them to work with their students, which is the last one, especially their homeroom teachers, work with them sometimes one-on-one. That will be something that we want to expand on next year. So, and then let's go to the next slide. This is Maddie Putnam, and Maddie is new to us this year. We want Maddie to comment on a few of the things that she did this year for us, which were just totally wonderful. And we have a few slides that Maddie and I can both comment on. So.
Yeah, so it's kind of a natural fit for Winnebago County Development and Tourism to do some of this work-based learning, kind of workforce development, because obviously we need a strong workforce for our community vitality. So it works really well. I'm really passionate about it. I've been a coach at the high school, so I like being around the high school. Kind of what we've done is through talking to students, taking surveys, working with Pat, kind of seeing how can we, like you said, expose everybody? So flex time has been a really good asset to get, business owners and employees in. And that's ranged from just like people I know to our board members to, chamber members, just people that, you know, are willing to come in. And then also a big thing we did was, a couple tours, so counter manufacturing. WinMed, they did a really high level tour with two classes, biomedical engineering and
Health 2 class.
health 2 class, and then other interested students. They got a full in-depth, like 2-hour tour of the WinMed facility, the new wound center. Which was like really interesting, played a role in their curriculum. And then the other thing with all 9th graders, we did this really high level tour. So they went, every 9th grade student went into a restaurant, a retail store, and a bank. And got to hear from professionals, whether, I mean, in some cases the owner, like Andy Bonnet at Rubiat, brought the students back into the kitchen and highlighted, like, this is what we do on a busy night. It goes from here to here to here. Answered questions about like, who would you want to hire? What skills do you want to see in a student or in a person? And it got students onto Water Street and into different businesses that they might not have been into before. And then, yeah, just kind of communicating with their CTE teachers and.
This is just a news article on her being hired and part of this process. So we go to the next one, we have the list, I think, in
Yeah,
these next 2 places. I
Yeah.
think the next one is the list.
yeah, so this kind of outlines,
Hey, those are all the things we did this year that we added from last year.
yeah, and a couple are still coming, so tomorrow we have cosmetologists coming, and these are all the 60 students, 40 plus, these are all from that survey we identified, so we listed, and it was like, would you be interested in hearing from so-and-so? They will be talking about XYZ, you will have time to ask questions, and then students said yes or no. So for some of these, like educators, 60 students were interested. So that's a lot, like we know what their interests are. And then, so like cosmetologists coming tomorrow, and then Friday, a couple attorneys are coming and students can ask questions or just listen.
Yep, Fairway Corporation is coming next Tuesday. And we're learning as we go with this. So we will say that. You can go to the next slide, I think, too. So these are some of the examples of the speakers that came in during flex time and some of the students that were working with them. We also piloted a project where IRP came and they were looking at hiring somebody a couple hours a day to do some work for them. And so they got a chance to interview. So there were just tons of opportunities to get to know the workplace over and over again, and kids asked questions. Kids were excited. The only thing that we were kind of was a forced thing was the 9th graders touring downtown. Everything else was the student took their career that they wanted to be in, and we signed them up for a flex time. We didn't make 150 students sit through something that they didn't want to do. So that's what makes ours very much unique compared to some other schools that will have a career fair day where they'll walk around the room and maybe get their ticket punched. We wanted it to be just a high level meaning and have an opportunity for kids to talk.
Yeah, and be intentional about, like, even if it is only 6 students, those 6 students are getting to ask questions and getting to really be involved in this presentation or with these people, so that it's more of a meaningful experience. And we've learned quite a bit. We have ideas and some planning and trying to, you know, make a pretty high level schedule. So businesses, like, we don't want to burn businesses out. So, and these people know, like, we are going to come to you and ask you for the month of March, can you be willing to come twice, or can you send people twice? And then they know exactly what's expected of them when, so that they can still be in the building.
Yep. Let's go to the next slide. I think we have a couple more, and then we'd like to introduce our people. So this is work-based learning for each student. That's just examples of the slide. Just more pictures of career connections, and the downtown tour is right there. We love, you know, it was really neat. Many former students in there, many parents of students, and they got the chance to ask great questions of these places. And each business didn't highlight just one career. Each business highlighted how to be an entrepreneur, 4 or 5 careers in the business. So that was really cool. Next slide. So we're gonna go back to a couple things that Mr. Hurst passed cover with CTSOs that's coming up for next year.
Yeah, so CTSO, another acronym, Career Technical Student Organization. So most of you have obviously probably heard of FFA, but those sorts of groups actually exist in all the CTE strands. So if you see right above that little red triangle box there are a variety of groups that can be used to do that. And one of the things that you'll see there is, as of next year, every CTE strand is required to have some level of a student leadership group. So obviously agriculture will keep FFA. We'll do Skills USA for our industrial tech strand, FCCLA for our culinary strand. And we currently are without a business teacher. So if anybody knows anybody, but if we get a person hired, we'll have to get one for business as well. And there's a couple different options there. So those will all be coming on next year as well.
We have to have one for every strand,
Correct.
so
We'll have either.
not to let it out of, like, if we come up with a creative way to get the business strand, we still have to.
Yeah, so we're either, if we go the route, FBLA is probably the likely choice. If we were somehow to get somebody in that had a different vision, that wanted to go DECA, we could go that route as well, but FBLA is more commonly chosen, correct? FFA, does a lot of amazing things for our school. We've actually got a couple FFA members sitting here, they're gonna talk to you in a little bit. It's just amazing to me, every time I see their highlights and updates and all the things they do with their supervised agricultural experiences, with presenting at various conferences, parliamentary procedure. There might have been a few comments made about parliamentary procedure happening so far, I don't know, but they're highly skilled in parliamentary procedure. And so just, they do a lot of different things, and they learn a lot from it, and it's an amazing thing that the students can really do, and it's a lot of work at the same time. So you can see here, and I've kind of tried to put a lot of these things in the Viking as they've come up, but there's a lot of components to agriculture, for example, with dairy farming, beef farming, judging cattle, presenting at the fair, and, you know, I don't even know if I'm using the right words here, but there's a lot of different types of components, and they enter a lot of contests and learn a lot about different various types of agriculture that exist. Our CTS, or basically our industrial technology strand, does a lot of things in building in the community. There's been some dugout work that's been done. There's some benches that have been put up and things that have been done around just to kind of help. So this construction class, there's metals class, there's cabinet making, which is cabinet making too. And it's amazing just the variety of courses that we offer in that strand. There's a few more pictures of some workplace tours and so forth. In our culinary strand, we have what's called Viking Cafe. All the students get what's serve safe qualified. And then by doing so, they were able to actually serve food and sell food. So we've started that up again this spring. And they do a menu on Thursdays, and really good food. So if you ever want to, it's better than anything I make at home, I can tell you that. And so it's good stuff, and it's a good chance for them to kind of learn how to run a restaurant on a very small scale. Obviously you've heard about our greenhouse program. A lot of our food is, you know, and that's served in our cafeteria is actually grown locally on the high school campus, either in our greenhouse or in our gardens. We've also got other gardens, in the back part of over the bank there, which I didn't know about till this year. We have a garden back there, and we have another garden off site. And just the amount of expertise that goes into gardening, definitely we're very fortunate to have Mr. Hayes and Mr. Johansson and all their knowledge and teaching of what it is to farm and to grow crops. All right, I'll let you guys talk. You've been waiting long enough. So.
Okay, so this last year, like our senior year, me and Brody opted to do more of the work-based learning, not just a couple experiences for kind of our whole setup for the year. So for us, that involved taking online classes through our E2020, which is through Edgenuity. So we did all but our agriculture classes online this year. So comp, speech, government, economics, everything was online. So we worked full days on Tuesday and Friday. Both of us had full, like your average work day. Schedules those days in our own areas. We were able to pick what kind of careers we wanted to work in, and then we also were able to get school credit for that. For a certain amount of hours, we got school credits for that. And I thought it was a really good experience. I worked, my pictures are on the left on that TV. I worked at
for instance, sales and service, so that's kind of where I'm looking to go into after college. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of learn more about the ag business side of things. And it gave me some ideas to change what I always thought I was gonna go to college for. Add a few different certificates into what I wanna do. Took on a lot of responsibility, definitely taught me time management. Especially the online classes, because you're only required to be in school for one block period to do the online class. So the rest of it's kind of up to you. But it was really nice this last semester, we were able to do a lot of our classes first semester, just kind of jumped right on it and got going into them. So we only had to take maybe 2 online classes this last semester, and we had a lot more work time, which also opened up a lot more opportunity to explore different areas that we were interested in. I don't know if that's, Brody will talk about what he did too, but I definitely think that it's something the school should continue doing. I don't know how much of it they've done in the past, but I would say I'm not a sit in the classroom and learn kind of person. I need to do things if I'm gonna learn them, and this was probably the best opportunity I've gotten in all of high school to do that.
So I worked at a couple different farms throughout the year for my family farm, and then Foresight Farms by Hesper, and then another farm over by Cresco. And we had, in order to get the high school credit, we needed 130 hours of work each semester. So yesterday, last week I turned in my hours. So we were able to get 4 high school credits this year for the year, which opened it up to like, this year I was able to graduate with, like extra credits. So what I did was on Tuesdays and Fridays, like Annika said, we worked the full days. And then in the mornings before I went to school, I went to work and after as well. One thing I would like to say, I took 2 classes through NICC, my speech class and my Comp 1 class. I know if you take it through the high school in person, I'm not the person to sit in a classroom but I know that it's paid for by the school. I think it would be something to look at, that the school district pays for, like I paid for my own classes I took through NICC online this year. I think it's really no different. I'm just working on them on my own, obviously. I would like to say something that I think it's important that I know various amount of different students that their parents aren't gonna let them do this because their parents aren't aware of the benefits of what this, for one of my cousins wants to do this next year. His mom wasn't aware of him wanting to do it because she wasn't aware of the benefits, what it's gonna do for him. And she was afraid that it would take away from his schooling and learning. So I think it would be important to get that out there more of how it's gonna benefit the students that are gonna do this. And it should be opened up to more, not just the ag side of things, it should be opened up to everybody through the high school, so.
All right, thank you very much. So, in summary, one of the things that we also did, we talked with each student the best we could about their planning. They have to have an academic plan and they have to have a career plan. And we would try to sit down with them after they had done their interest inventory and work values assessment and talk about plans for next year, but also plans for beyond high school. And we talked about what career goals do you have? What job are you looking for? Do you have a job? Do you want to do a job shadow? And so we pay particular attention to it. We would like to be intentional about doing that even more next year with Bridget being on board to really spend quite a bit of time. You can do the next slide. This year, we did have 12 students that did some form of employment or apprenticeship. So we did have some that worked in restaurants. We had one that worked in a grocery store. We had one that worked in a nursing home, obviously farming and ag business. And these are all for credit. We had one as a farm mechanic this year, an ag mechanic. So we had a total of 12 students that earn credit. Certainly we have more students than that work, but these are the ones that specifically, wanted to take classes, a small amount of classes and get high school credit for it. And our goal is expansion in some way. We have about 23 students signed up to do this for next year, and we're gonna have a flex time meeting. I'm gonna ask Annika and Brody if they would wanna come to that flex time meeting to talk about what are the benefits of doing this program? And how can you learn most from the program? And then how do you still fit your schedule that you want to take in with it? Obviously, the more you want to work, the less time there is in school to be able to get your credits done. So we do have a couple more things to iron out, but that's what was done, work-based learning for credits. Work-based learning experiences happen by everybody, but to get high school credits out of it, you have to sign up for it and you have to be able to put in a certain amount of time to get the credit for it. So next slide. So goal number 3, teachers knowing, I told you about that. We shared the Google form with them so they know what careers that they're looking at and had an opportunity to review that themselves. Hopefully they would have a chance to talk with students about it, but at least they would know what career they're going into. So we were able to accomplish that goal. Let's go with the next slide. Goal number 4, homeroom teachers discussing with this one-on-one. So the career was shared and other options were shared. I'm not sure if every teacher got a chance to talk with every student, but we were able to plan for that. And next year, we'd like to do it even better. Let's go with the next slide. In 8th grade, this is just a recap. Mr. Stock does this every year along with with Ryan Hogan, and that they do their career research and they take a deep dive for about 5 weeks. And that's how they start their ICAP, their individual plan. So we just have to report to you that every grade does this. Next slide. So we also do academic advisement. That's a part of, and the reason Mr. Hurston went over all those other academic pieces is what are you doing to prepare students for their career? Well, one of the categories is academics. You have to have great academics to prepare them for the next level. So not only do you have to prove that you're doing career readiness, you have to show how well are you doing in the classroom. So we have an 8th grade night where we orient students to what it takes to graduate from high school. So that's one piece of the 4-year plan, which is a component of the ICAP and the DCAP. And it's very well attended. And we had a student panel doing that this year, just talking about what high school is like and how to be successful in high school, which of course contributes to learning and graduation rates, which is a piece of this plan. Okay, next slide. So that's just a summary of everything that we've told you here today. You can keep looking at those items, but that's, I guess, everything that we've been doing. Is that our last slide? Maybe. Oh, we also must teach students how to do the FAFSA, how to fill out the FAFSA. Instead of sitting down with every one of them or having a big, long, boring talk, we have them watch this YouTube video on how to fill it out. We get feedback from Beth Burns at the Keystone AEA, and she tells us, because she can get a listing, who's filled out the FAFSA, who has not. I reach out to those students who haven't filled it out, see if they're planning on doing it or not. We also, for the first time, had a college financial aid night and a FAFSA. We always have a financial aid night, FAFSA completion night, where thank you Luther College. Their people in their financial aid office came in, helped about 5 families fill out a FAFSA that normally haven't done. So that's a brand new thing this year. So that is a requirement of the DCAP, and these are the 3 ways that we fulfill that requirement. So next item. So this is, like I said before, the components of what a ICAP and DCAP must have. Just a nice graphic for everybody to see, and if you want to explore it. There's a website, state website has a whole thing, just like you'd see there on the right, and you can dive deep into it. We have some goals that these are preliminary goals, but the goals for next year are going to be even more coordinated with Bridget and Maddie and I over the summer, and to really have an excellent plan. My goal is to really have 2 work-based learning experiences for every student, and how do we go about doing that best? Try to tailor make it for every single student, not force them to do things, but give the opportunity where they can choose to do things. Really, we'll also have to look at our score before we can make our official goals, because we want to react. If our score was low in one area, we want to be able to adjust these goals. So I believe that that's the last slide for us. So
Yeah, so like I said, later on in the agenda, there'll be an opportunity for you guys to vote on this and approve it. If there's any questions that come up now or then. Certainly let me know as well. Thank you, guys. Thanks to our students for coming here and as well.
thank you. Have any questions or anything
All
else?
done.
Well, it's impressive. I mean, it's a lot of work. You can see, I appreciate your goals to continue it. At this point, is it just seniors who are allowed to do what you two are doing?
So far, that's all it's been.
Do
Yes.
you two think that, that you would have been, responsible enough to do this as a freshman or sophomore, junior, or what's your opinion of, yeah, I mean, you're doing that.
Personally, I think that it was kind of good to see, you know, my first 3 years of high school, I had a full schedule every year. And I was able to see what classes I liked and didn't like, but after my junior year, I decided that I wanted to go and talk to him about this. Because I saw that this year I had to rise my GPA because I was able to learn better online and teach myself than I was in the classroom. And I just think it's good to do it later on in your high school years because you don't know what high school, you want to get the high school feel, you know, like the first couple of years and experience it. And then I feel like it was good this year to kind of make your decision what you want to do, you know.
I also think a lot of, this might sound bad talking to a bunch of teachers about it, but I feel like a lot of the classes you take in high school aren't exactly tailored to a career. Like geometry for me personally was just a class I had to take to get through. I had to take it to graduate, and so I just took it and I did well in the class because that's just who I am, but I think it's important to learn how to get through those classes, even if you're not 100% interested in them. Kind of like Brody said, you got to get your feel for what's good for you, because you might think that you're a hands-on learner, but then you realize in high school, especially, what your actual learning style and like study style is. Personally, I think especially senior year, there gets to be a lot of pressure to figure out what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it and where you're gonna go for college and what's your career and where you're gonna work after college. So I feel like this was definitely a good opportunity to figure some of that out without just sitting in a classroom and thinking about it while I'm in class. But I would say it's a lot easier to fit it into a schedule senior year, just because you have a lot more freedom in what classes you do take, as long as you're prepared the other 3 years. So I feel like, personally, I probably wouldn't have done it freshman or sophomore year. Probably could have made it happen junior year, but you also end up taking a lot of hard classes junior year that I don't think would have been as beneficial for me to take online as they were in the classroom.
That's where it's difficult. The academic preparation, the first 3 years really sets you up for college with getting to Algebra 2 and things like that. And so it's difficult to get things earlier. I think we might have had one person where we've counted some credits the junior year because it fit their needs.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to new business. First is the approval of the 2023-2024 amended school budget.
We kind of talked a little bit about this. Every year, districts tend to amend their budgets based on what they set in the spring and to what the actual is happening with the budget during the year. So we amend it. You're not allowed to overspend your accounts, or you shouldn't overspend your accounts, so you have to make amendments. When you do this, Kathy's looking at our expenditures, and so you always estimate a little high because you don't want to come back and have a second budget amendment, and you're looking at trends. And we were thinking of some of the things that caused us to need more funding, and a couple times, like when we add the school social worker, even though that's going to be grant funded and shared, the expenditure comes out of the academic, but the revenue that comes back in for that will come back in as a miscellaneous account. So there's a couple salary things like that. And then there was a software purchase or two that was a little larger than we thought. So I don't know, Kathy, is there anything else that you would add to the budget amendment?
Just that, when you listen to the budget, you hear about all these silos. This budget is throwing everything in the same bucket. So this is all inclusive of all the funds of the district. So, biggest one I could tell is the purchase of the hybrid property. So we didn't expect that to happen last year when we put the budget together. We spent the money, so now we have to amend the budget to make sure we've got enough in that function to cover it.
And that's a good point. We talk about money in silos and we can't spend, save or pebble on salaries and benefits, and yet, when we look at it this way, we're looking at it just a function.
And it certainly isn't unusual. This is 15th year in a row that I know of that we've done this,
Yeah.
so it's not like somebody did something wrong and we have to fix it. It's just part of the process.
Refining. Yeah. Okay, so this does need to be approved. Are there any other questions?
I move that we approve the 2023-2024 amended school budget with our thanks to Kathy for all of her work.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the annual review of the district and career academic plan.
Probably, if I could have a
And-
moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you're actually approving, is a document, the document, the Word document, and all the components that are in there. Which again are aligned to the presentation we just gave you, but just want to make sure that you get a second, if you haven't looked at that yet, you know what you're actually approving there.
Mhm.
And there's no funding request, it's just approving of the program. I thought, I learned a lot. I thought it was very informative, both the, and I think it's great. And I think for kids that want to go that path, it's given them another opportunity, and so I think it's a neat program. I'll make a motion to approve the annual review of the district career and academic plan.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the approval of the 2023-2024 audit bid, which is from Hacker and Nelson here in Decorah.
This is their bid you have to hire a auditor every year, so, there's not too many that want to do school audits anymore, to be honest with you. It's kind of hard to find sometimes. And I know the districts I left. We were both using the same firm, and one district just couldn't get their audit report, which then you have to write a letter to the state saying it's coming. So Hacker Nelson is local. They're very timely, efficient, and so I was pleased that
And most schools around us and Patrick Nelson as their auditor too.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Hacker Nelson to conduct the 23-24 audit.
I'll second that.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the K2 and 312 Extended Learning Program handbooks. Again, this is an extension of the presentation that we just heard with revisions.
Appreciate people sticking around to witness the motion to approve, but
a lot of attention.
alleviate further suspense, I'll make a motion that we approve the extended learning program handbooks.
And I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Adoption of resolution approving revenue purpose statement, ordering an election on revenue purpose statement to authorize expenditures from revenues received from the state secure in advance division for the education fund and ordering the publication of notice of election.
And this is a fun one. I'll start off by saying, I'm gonna recommend we table this, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is our save, updating the revenue purpose statement, how we're gonna spend the save penny, and then an extension of the save penny. In my board meetings this week, and we had them later in the week than normal, one of the questions came up is, should we really be doing this prior to, the GO bond, referendum in November? So I checked with Jerry, Gallagher,
Who's with our consultant.
with our
or
consultant.
Communication consultant.
Yeah.
group.
He said we could do it in September. His preference would be, we don't confuse voters and put two things on the ballot. So he suggested that, maybe March of 2025 would be better. Then I talked to Emily Cole with Allers and Cooney and just double checked with John Burmeister, who's with PFM. And the aha moment came when we've been talking about the ability to borrow about 28 million with a GO bond at the $2.70 rate. We've been talking about the ability to borrow PEPAL against future PEPAL at 1.5 and borrow against the future save at 7.5 million. But the thing came up with John Burmeister when I said, hey, we're gonna put this off. He said, oh, I thought you'd already extended it. The $7.5 million that you can borrow gets saved is providing that you've extended the save to 2051, and I wrote a 20-year note. So all of a sudden, if we don't pass it, then we lose the ability to borrow. Our borrowing capacity goes down to 2 million. So that 7.5 million really would only be 2 million. We can't, PEPAL we could extend, but we can't extend that until we get closer. So all this being said, for us to be in the best position with our bond issue, I'm gonna recommend that we pass it, whether we put it on the September election or the November election, is probably something the board should discuss. And I want to confirm with Emily Cole that Allers and Cooney that we can put this election on a November election. Because I thought in one of the conversations I had with her that she gave me my choices as September and March. I don't want to misspeak. So I would respectfully explain that all to the board and say, when I have more information, we'll probably have a quick short meeting, but understand that it's probably good that we discovered this now. Because if we were counting on, potentially borrowing money against save and we hadn't extended our referendum or our revenue purpose statement to 2051, we would have had a little bit of a problem.
So I think
So-
it's great that we're exploring these options and can make a strategic decision to best leverage our debt capacity. And it's not too late for anything. So I appreciate the efforts to gather the information that you already have and continue to ask a few more questions before we take a formal vote.
Yeah, well, and again, I kind of had sent Cindy a note, like, it came out of discussion with I met with all 4 board members on Friday, and I came out of, I think, the second one. That was like, hey, let's see what Jerry says, and so I appreciate questions with board members and the opportunity to do that, so, yeah. So, my recommendation is we table it.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim before we move on?
Good learning experience for all.
Okay. Want to make sure I'm on the right one. Next is approval of the learning management system for the district.
And, this is our student reporting system.
This is our system where all the students go on and do their homework and submit homework to the teachers.
Oh, okay, and this was funded, I was saying this was Power School, this is Canvas. Okay. This is Canvas, a lot of our courses are built using Canvas, so we use this a lot. The state funded it for 2 years during COVID, 3 years during
The
COVID.
last 3 years total,
Okay,
and they're looking for, or they have applied for another grant. They have yet to receive word that they've received the grant, so we need to make a commitment for a renewal date, but if they receive that grant, we will get money towards.
If the state receives the grant.
The state. That's all. I asked about being retroactive, and they said that's fine.
I would assume this would have the same rules as non-instructional software that you'd be able to use Peppel with. We have to,
It's instructional.
it's instructional.
Students, yeah, they're.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
think
assume
it's
that the camera
essential.
didn't get my eye roll. Okay.
It's essential for all of our classes use it for everything. Yeah.
We like those kinds of things that get used a lot.
Yeah.
So I like it enough that I'll make a motion that we approve the learning management system.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of an MOU for a work day on May 24th, 2024.
So that's Friday, May 24th, which is scheduled to be our last day of school. We'll have a 1:30 dismissal on that day. If you read master contract to the letter, days before holiday and vacation periods, staff are allowed to leave as soon as students leave.
Yeah.
And I don't even think people here know that. But my good friend in Central City, Stu, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, he would be sending me an email saying, hey, you should remind teachers that they can leave at 1:35 on Friday. And I think he did that not to remind teachers, to remind me that was in master contract. So we had a quick discussion with the association that that teachers still have a work day technically on Tuesday after Memorial Day. But half of that is asynchronous and half of it is kind of room checkout. So we kind of made this offer that if we acknowledge the fact that staff will stay till 3:15 on that Friday, we won't require them to come back on Tuesday, because if as long as they've got their asynchronous done and their room checked out, we won't have any obligations for them on Tuesday. And again, the association, I don't think too many people were really thinking that they were leaving at 1:35 on Friday. It's maybe bargaining, I think it's a win-win for both sides. And the association was happy to sign it. They said we should make it official at this meeting as well. So this will mean that the teachers will stay till 3:15 on that Friday, and we won't have as long as they're done with their obligations, have any requirements for them on Tuesday. And I think a lot of people have already done the asynchronous PD part, so that's nice.
People are very positive about doing that, and they feel like it's meaningful and useful.
Yeah, there's pockets, but yeah, and we continue to work on making it more meaningful, but yeah, I mean, just like in-person PD has, hits really well for some people, and sometimes we have to work on it. So
I'll make a motion, we approve the MOU for the work day on Monday, May 24th, 2024.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the first reading of a building use policy.
So this is on Mr. Riley and I's to-do list, and we've been working on it. I helped us a little bit because I grabbed some different policies, but I guess trying to maybe define our groups and maybe add a little bit more groups that use our facilities and who we charge money to and who we don't charge money to, and access, and paying attention to if you're a nonprofit and it requires custodial time, that sometimes we'll have to charge you for that, or we don't charge you for that. Some of this will be new kind of information for people. Some of it maybe people are already used to. I'm trying to think of a good example. So I think it gets to, there's like, school-related groups. So as an example, the Fine Arts Booster or our agreement with Decorah Parks, that's gonna be in group one, which is not gonna pay a fee. I did borrow language from Central City. We would charge if you did an event or tournament that required that you charge fee money to and custodial services, we would charge you for that. I don't know how that fits with current practice, to be honest with you. That would be new, so we might not put that in the final draft when we read it next month.
We'll work through that, just because a lot of the tournaments that we do host, the organizations that we host them provide all the service support.
Okay,
And that could be the language, either here's the rate or you provide custodial fee. I can just tell you that sometimes that we had that situation in Central City where we just didn't feel like people were doing a very good job cleaning, so the board got fed up and just said, boom, it's $40 an hour. And that was a bit of a community backlash as well. So,
yeah, we want to make sure that we have a policy that can be the rules to help staff out and administrators out as you're helping, like, be the decider. So we want this, the effort is for this to be helpful and to give you the structure that you need to have efficiency in your decision.
so defining who gets charged, but putting them into groups of school affiliated groups, like local nonprofits. And then we've got outside groups that are for-profit groups or activities. And I can think of dance might be an example of.
Yeah, probably one of the biggest delineations within Iowa law is that we need to make sure we have clear is if the group is serving just students of the Decorah Community School District, or if the group is serving students that include the Decorah Community School District students, or as well as out of district students. And we have a few of those scenarios that kind of play, we want to make sure we're in line with our code as it relates to insurance situations and what other pieces of the confidence.
So this is a draft and we'll get some time to refine and make it fit with current practice and make sure we're with code and
try to make sure we have specific groups that we know that fit with any two of these things.
Does the board have any questions? Or anything that you see on this first draft that jumps out at you or that you're not sure about? And would like to talk through?
I think it's just good to review the policy and assure that we have a policy that can be the actual practice in reality, as opposed to a visionary statement that, yeah, well, people don't actually do that. So I think this is an important process.
And of all the policies I've reviewed in other districts, this one might take more than 2 readings just because as you see it and we do some what if scenarios for you, we want to make sure the board understands what we're proposing. And that's fine too. There's nothing magic about 2 readings. That's just a lot of times you get it from the state and it's, adopt this policy and the 2 readings kind of feel like, well, sure, we're gonna adopt it. But this one will be specific to Decorah and we'll want to pay attention to that.
As a person who runs a facility that is rented out regularly, these types of procedures and we'll call them rate scales are very typical and expected. And so I feel like what we're doing is setting ourselves up to be the same as what you might expect if you were trying to rent a dance studio instead of you're renting our facility instead. And so what I think we're doing is setting ourselves up for clarity with the groups that want to use our facilities in terms of how much is it going to cost? What can I do? What can't I do? The timelines for doing it. I think that'll also be beneficial on our end so that Adam can say, yes, the gym is available on the state. We assume no basketball can get shifted or anything, but it's easy to have a calendar that's booked out months in advance. And you can say, yes, this works, this doesn't work, this group's using it, whatever that group might be. So I think this is an exceptional choice for us to do for clarity, for consistency with all of our user groups. The only potential change I might see in there is under group 1, the tiering system. As a former Boy Scout myself, I know the Boy Scouts are about to undergo a name change, and so I think the purpose of what we've set out here is great, but we may have to realize that some of these names will change.
Scouts.
Yes.
And these are the same fees no matter what school we're talking about, which building we're talking about? The Carrie Lee Auditorium would be the same as the high school auditorium. So,
It's gotta be it's the district facility, so. Part of the district.
Okay, no action is needed for the, or
Yeah,
we do need to approve the first reading. Okay,
I make a motion, we approve this for first reading.
I second.
okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Summer office hours.
So this proposal, again, I borrowed from other districts, this would be, we would just set what summer office hours are, starting in June and for the month of June and July. Letting our community know like when they would expect to find someone in the building. This doesn't mean that, and also setting up for our staff that are working in the summer, what time they're expected to be in, what time they are allowed to leave. It is a little shorter day, and then Wednesdays would be 11:30 would be the end of that workday. In talking about it, there's the custodians already have a different, they can do 4 10-hour days or 5 8-hour days. There's people that aren't on all summer contracts, so for like building principals and secretaries, they go to about the middle of the second week of June. So this would impact them until their contract ends. I did have one secretary ask me if this meant that they were working all summer now. I said, no, this is just as long as your contract goes for. This is certainly, when Darlene and I looked at it, it's everybody in this office, Brad and Adam that work all year round, as well as Greg works all year round. Chris works all year round, and I'm thinking, although it's computer techs, we're also on that list. So, so as we're salaried employees, we either get our work done or we don't get our work done. There's, for some of the staff, hopefully it's a recognition of time that they put in throughout the year, and I think of people that I see at events or stay here late that, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
That they're not cheating the district.
I want to fully support many of the all of the summer workers, but I see you all at activities day, night, and late night. So thank you for all you do, and I hope that this is helpful.
Does this compare to, is this a new policy for this summer, or does this continue?
That's a fun question, because then have one board member say, are you guys already doing this? And so it would be new, because it would maybe be setting what it is. I think our hours here were never posted anywhere, but they would end at 4, is what I observed. So I assume that in the summer we ended at 4. So it is a little different. And again, that's when we can promise people that the office will be staffed. There certainly will be people that will stay after on certain days. And in talking to the principals, if because their buildings typically, usually about June 14th, they don't have someone in the office every day, June 15th, but there's also always the ability if somebody needs to drop off a paperwork or meet with somebody, that we can meet with them after if they schedule it ahead of time. So.
How many hours does this give a work week? Are you looking at? It looks like.
Oh, well, I suppose because you'd probably look at a shorter lunch, but it would be 36 hours. Of the office being staffed.
One thing I think should be clarified is, as this is right now, it's not a board policy. Meaning that next year it just automatically occurs, because those dates would require some flexibility. You know, we're saying June 2nd to August 5th. you know, as I view what we're doing right now, we have to do the same thing next year. And, you know, if there is some thought of, you know, for example, take the unified activities calendar and say, this policy is always going to be weeks, you know, 48, 49, 50, and so on. And you're probably familiar with that. I don't know if we want to take that approach as we're doing this to make it something that doesn't change from year to year, or if we have to do this every year.
I might say, because it's new and we've never stated it before.
Yeah.
I would say let's get through a summer, provided it's approved, and, you know, at least next year revisit it, and maybe next year is the time to
Yeah.
say.
We'll try.
It works,
basis
or, yeah.
Also looked at as a raise.
Could be looked at as a raise.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion that we approve this. Not as a formal board policy, but just something that we are doing as a trial run for 1 year.
And I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the contract for the middle school roof project. Oh, excuse me.
Doing like I was.
It's a long agenda tonight. Tuition agreement.
Okay, so we have a board policy that we passed last year that we're gonna reimburse staff when we request them to take classes to get their certification. But in addition to that, then when we have a specific person that we want to take classes, then we ask them to sign a tuition agreement. So they have an understanding. So, and that's what this is. This is a staff member who we've already asked to take some classes, so we need to make sure that we have a signed agreement. They kind of understand what the reimbursement is like, and we tried to spell it out. Obviously, this was prepared by our attorney so that it would make sense. I've got one question. The current board policy that we have says a maximum of $7,000 will be reimbursed for classes. And so there is a piece where I'm gonna verify with Carrie whether we need to add that to this language or if it's just understood because it's board policy. But obviously this staff member is taking classes that we've asked them to take. That benefits the district, and so I highly recommend that we approve this. As a point of clarification, the tuition, we take this out of teacher quality funds. So.
And this is up to $7,000 of classes.
Yeah.
I move that we approve the tuition agreement for Felicia DeJong.
Are we approving the agreement for just one person?
Yes.
Okay, that's because it's.
This person, to start the reimbursement process, we have to have the tuition agreement signed.
And could I ask, I guess we don't have a second yet,
No.
for the discussion.
Oh, second.
Further discussion.
This person's job is what, and what kind of endorsement are they needing?
Special education teacher has a level 2, strat 2, all the needs a strat 1 special ed endorsement. Just needs a couple of courses, has a lot of courses done, needs a couple of courses to take and be able to complete it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the contract for the middle school roof project.
We accepted the bids for the middle school roof, and this is just the official contractor with the company out of Des Moines.
Academy.
Thanks. And we're gonna have a meeting next week where we talk about the official start date, but I'm telling them they could be in Friday afternoon at 3:30 if they'd like.
Yeah.
And get this started.
Are they anxious about getting going?
Yeah, I do think that's a good sign. I think officially in the contract, I had told them that Tuesday, but in the contract it said Thursday, or in the bid, I don't know why it said Thursday. But the fact that they want to know when they can get in is a good sign. And they're coming up from Des Moines, so we have to assume that the sooner that they can get it done, the less hotel and lodging they have to provide, so. So, yeah. It's super nice to have that done.
And this bid came in where we expected.
Well, it was lower than we thought, and we feel good about that.
Right.
But, of course, I assume that the Shive would overestimate, because they didn't know what the market would be, but they had estimated like 1.5 million. And I believe it came in at 1.1018. 1018, yeah, just over $1 million. So yeah, we're thrilled that it came in $500,000 lower, but some of that might have been design, like, you kind of overestimate. So that the people do feel good about the bids. But the fact that it was a company from Des Moines does reflect on, I think Des Moines had some big projects with Meta and Amazon that have completed, and so we'd heard that from other construction people, that the Des Moines companies are looking for projects to do.
Great.
And then they get to come up to Decorah, so it's a win-win for them.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I know these are standard documents, the American Institute of Architects, so it's not like we have to worry about what the terms are. This is what the country uses, so. With that comfort level, I would move that we approve the contract.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of fine arts booster purchases.
And so I will defer to Mr. Riley. I know, so sound system and cafeteria lights.
Our music boosters, which are beginning to transition to more performing arts boosters. I kind of have to let people know that they're reviewing the mission statement and some of the other elements with that, but they've had several different projects that we've entertained and we're to have some discussion, including acoustical shells and clouds and acoustical shells and auditorium. That project, once we got budget numbers, is going to be quite expensive. So we have to work that for down the road. With addition to that, we know what the use of Carrie Lee has been used more and more, and we've shared sound equipment between the high school auditorium and the Carrie Lee auditorium. And with the additional use, that's put somewhere in there on those items over a period of time. So working with Sean and our music staff, and a number of other things, we'd like to be able to continue to solidify that space for the equipment that's going to be used. So John has gotten a subsequent bid to be able to make that improvement, knowing what that would cost. In addition to that, we use our high school cafeteria for 3 main events on a regular basis for performing purposes, which would include Harvest Moon concert for orchestra, the Madrigal Dinner and/or Performing Art Showcase, which is on a 2-year rotation, as well as our Jazz Coffee House, which are well-attended events, important curricularly and a number of other things, but it's a pretty extensive setup, and we use that space. And what we're able to do sound-wise is really good, but the lighting-wise, we want to be able to continue to make some improvements with the multi-purpose use of that space. So we've also additionally gotten submitted to be able to make that improvement through a length of discussions for the better part of the last 6 months or better with our music boosters. They've also went out and written a grant through the John C. Curtis Foundation, of which they were awarded $50,000.
Wow.
For that, which centered around using that money for any one of these 3 projects that we've alluded to. At their meeting last week on Monday, they voted to use that funding as well as additional funding that they've had banked from the community donations to be able to make these purchases on these 2 projects, hoping that we can make them happen this summer. So we're hoping we can get your approval and be ready to go through that normal process, of which the boosters are going to spend that $65,000 and $35,000 projects to make happen.
Yeah.
That's to put more burden on the district. So
Nice.
That's
And
right.
it's a pretty easy decision to approve, letting someone else spend money on the facilities.
Yep, it's a really good board right now, and obviously the rank for that grant was a subcommittee that did some really good work. They kind of got a little inside information with the help from a few community members, highly involved in the theater world that releases this grant out there. It's kind of nice to found out probably about 3 weeks ago that we got there.
And they worked directly with you and other school staff to identify the need. It wasn't opinions from the community. And I mean, I just want to make sure that fundraising groups are working with staff to identify need and help meet the gap.
So the better part of, it's been more than 6 months as far as how we kind of went through and worked ourselves through this process. So last Monday night, the Easter's meeting was a big step.
Good.
So hopefully we can.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity, this could have been one of those items on our Pepple and Save list, but it would have been one of those, it's a want more than a need, so it was an opportunity for booster clubs to say, hey, we've got the capital and we'll make it happen and write a grant, so.
Yeah.
Right.
From a need standpoint, obviously there was some things that would have ended up on the Pepple Save list for the carry the on, without a doubt, just to make sure we can still do the programming that's needed, in that space. Over a period of time, I know. It's been a really good space, and really the last couple of years, it's been normal.
And I would just, as we're talking about Madrigal Dinner, and Harvest Moon. Danette and I are always amazed at the people there. Obviously, lots of people go because they have children and whatnot, but we were seated at a table for Madrigal with just two couples of retired people that didn't have children that went to Decorah, didn't work at Decorah, moved to the community because it was a fun place, it fit what they wanted to do in their lifestyle, and they're participating in our fine arts, which of course are awesome, so it makes sense. But once the shock, we were like, so why did you come? And they were like, well, we like to do stuff, and then we mentioned that we had a bond vote that probably would be coming up, and they were former teachers and they promised that they would vote for it, but I think we somehow, like, it's a learning, at least at our house, about how much our student and our programs not just benefit our school community, but our community, so that's it.
This is great. Let extend them our gratitude for going through these projects. It's amazing for the district, so thank you.
It's a great group right now.
With those thoughts in mind, I move that we approve the purchases that will benefit our school district by the Fine Arts Boosters.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the ELA curriculum purchase.
So ELA has been working on this for 2 years. And Liz Fox has been leading that charge. So she kind of wrote up their process, their expectation. I think the keys before we say the dollar amount, we recognize that it is a 6-year, it's a 6-year adoption. So Liz had gotten me the first one that I shared with the board, and I think that that quote was 51,000. I thought, well, that's a lot of money. And then that was just 6th and 7th grade. So then I had the sticker shock of the second adoption, added 110,000 to it, I think. I don't have it memorized. I know the board got this late, so I just told Liz, I said, the board might need some extra time with this. So the 8 through 12 is there, that total was 114,000. And it was thoughtfully done that there is 2 different series. They go from my perspective to the lit, I don't know what the second one was called, but they did that kind of understanding how it fit and what they wanted to teach. And they assured me that it would work just fine, seamless. So again, I did preface that this is a big commitment, so it's not something that if the board needs more time with it, I fully appreciate that. As Kathy was able to get us some dollar amounts, when we did the ELA for pre-K through 5, that number was $176,000. And the math curriculum was $138,000. So,
ELA and math are always the big one.
yeah. So,
A 6-year cycle, so it's their time.
Is this all paid up front?
yes,
Is this something we budgeted for? I mean, we.
We always have curriculum that cycles in and out, so, yeah.
So do we have a spreadsheet? Something is showing, okay, this is where we're gonna be here and we're gonna come in here and maybe it'd be nice to share that with us, maybe some help in that. At least we didn't have to take a look at it.
I was gonna say, I know we have a spreadsheet.
And how does this compare in cost to last year? We purchased what curriculum for what subject area? Social studies. How does it compare to the social studies adoption that we did?
That one was cheaper. Yeah, for sure. But as I kind of talked about last year, the difference that's emerging, and I think it's a good difference, is you also have to pay for, you're not just buying textbooks anymore, you're buying online textbook licenses and access to all the materials and all of that stuff that wraps into the Canvas program that you guys approved earlier. Like, there's just a lot more layers of things that need to be looked at. One of the things I would say, to Tim's point, the thing about this process that I like, is the teachers were so involved. They spent a lot of time this year in multiple professional development days, vetting and looking at resources and having conversations about fit and what works and unpacking standards and looking at activities, and their buy-in on this is pretty significant. And so it's going to be, you look at it as an investment. Liz kind of ran some numbers for me. It's $35 a kid per year for 6 years. That's not an unreasonable number for the HMH part. And there's already a level of excitement and enthusiasm that's already allowed happening. The other thing that kind of just is important for the board, I think, to know is going on and actually rostering these kids on Canvas. Shannon Quandall does that. That's a very cumbersome process, and it would be ideal to approve this earlier than later. Because sometimes we get into scenarios where things aren't rostered and ready to go. Till like later on, weeks in the school year. And I'm not trying to put time pressure on the board. It's just like, that's gonna create an issue in terms of like, one person is going through and doing this. And the nice thing is, to that point, part of why the high school specifically chose HMH, which is the intro to lit that Dr. Farner referenced, is because the amount of time and effort and steps it takes to roster the kids using our Canvas is substantially less with the HMH program, which should help streamline and get things up a lot faster. So, I mean, that just kind of speaks to the level of thought that our teams really put into all of this, like what's going to integrate, what's going to work well, what's going to best fit with our standards, what activities work, how are we going to ensure rigor, like all those conversations happen this year. And so I know it's a big sticker price. I understand that. But if you really break it down by kid and think about how many kids we're serving, $35 a kid per year for 6 years.
And it's an investment in our teaching staff, building efficiency and adding capacity, right?
And I would just add, echoing Brad's point, you think when stuff is online, maybe it'll be cheaper because they don't have to print out a book. That's, in my experience, that's been the opposite.
So the cost that we have here, it includes the licenses for 6 years. We don't have to, and the the consumable.
Yeah, there's a lot, I think.
The consumable, does it?
And Dr. Mr. Albers is not here, is that I know that there wasn't a desire for consumable at the high school level. I think some of the other earlier, like the middle school, there might have been. So I can't speak to that. But at the online licenses, you can see there, if you look at the quote, kind of how that breaks down a little bit. Yeah. So, but because it's kind of broken down by grade level, but somewhere in there. digital student resources, 6 years, grades 6 through 8, for example. So you can kind of see how that works. Teacher digital licenses are there. Access to Teachers Corner, total, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You're paying a little bit of all that, so. And yeah. I don't necessarily, like, I can't know if I can speak to each individual license and how it all breaks down, but you can see that the digital licenses are all in there.
This is the other, there's,
The consumables
This
are
is the
usually used at the elementary level,
Yeah.
at middle school, if I remember right. Like Ryan Hogan maybe got 40 textbooks and he'll use those year after year with multiple classes. Typically, they don't get a textbook anymore, hardcover one or hard copy one for each student. Just because we have it all right on the iPads and the laptops.
Some kids could learn differently, so you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, so to your point, Carol, I'm telling you, the 9th grade one on the HMH, 150 kids, the textbooks, digital resources for 6 years, write-up digital literature, student resources for 6 years. So that's all kind of all wrapped into that student price. Then there's a separate component with the teaching materials, which is, you don't need as many of those, but it's a little bit more robust what you're going to get with that. For the teachers.
Well, like the 7th grade, they are not only getting consumables, they're not getting any hardcover textbooks. Does that include the consumables for 6 years?
I have,
120
as
students.
much. I've only been, I can help it down.
It looks like the 8th grade quote has soft cover materials for all 6 of the years, plus hardcover materials, plus digital.
What about
Typically,
the 7th grade?
Seventh grade.
Typically how it's done now is every summer they'll send you that same amount for 1 year, you'll give the next year, so 6 years.
I've got, the 7th grade quote has consumables on it, if that's the question.
That was my question, right, without hard copies. So my question was, we will get those 120 consumables every year
Yes.
at this price. We won't have a
There will
change.
be, this one time.
Well, it's, seems like a big bite, but quite frankly, I guess it's the cost of doing business when you're a school district. This is the kinds of things that we're obligated to obtain to educate our students.
I will say, having taught in a variety of schools, that the 1 year I taught in a school without an English language arts curriculum or without a math curriculum was the worst year of my teaching experience and left me wanting to leave as fast as possible. Because building your own curriculum on the fly is not fun. And having something that you can use as a resource, like these textbooks and consumables, is more than appreciated on a teaching standpoint.
And I assume that our admin team supports and supervises and encourages staff to use the curriculum that we're investing in.
I did email you our manual and our process for curriculum review, which Brad spoke to. We developed that about 4 years ago. We didn't really have a curriculum review process. And so I think that it was well put together. We've made some revisions to it over the years, but it really does get all of the teachers within that content area involved in that process. It's very thorough. And I also then gave you the review cycle. I did just update this the other day, so you won't see 23-24. That's kind of on the end. I updated it to 24-25. So you'll notice that's the first column. And usually that design year, which is the one at the top, is where we start looking at new materials. That design year, develop year, and then we would purchase for implementation the next year. So if you ever have any questions about this, please reach out.
I'm glad we have you in that role that can follow the investment or, help lead staff through that.
And I also have to
Process.
say the instructional coaches are a huge part of that. So Liz really took the reins on this one. And
Yeah, Liz has invested a lot of this year in this. It's been good work and, we spend money on lots of things in school, but I think probably nothing more important than what happens in the classroom, especially as it relates to English and math.
As a non-educator, I you look at these things, I always look at it, oh my God, it's a crazy amount of money, but it is what we use to educate our kids and I've gotten over it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, you pay for what you get.
That's right.
So,
Positive note, money wise, we decided to continue with ZERN at elementary level for math. No, we will not be making the chips, so.
We're making money.
Yeah.
So if we adopt this, then in 6 years, then they decide they still, this is it, you know, this is working for us, then what
And that's what we
happens
did with
then?
ZERN. We went through the process over 2 years and decided that we spent a lot of time with our data. And just decided that it was doing what we wanted it to do. So there are some supplements that we're going to do with it, where we found some gaps, but yeah, if in 6 years they are looking at what they're doing and they don't want to make any changes, you just stay with what you have. But we would have to pay for 6 more years of digital license.
Right.
I will make a motion that we approve the purchase of the recommended English language arts curriculum.
my second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next is the superintendent's report.
So, I just start with thanks to Dana and Brad for helping with the curriculum. Justin is not here because he's got a concert tonight, so in fairness to Justin.
Carry the auditorium.
And to carry the auditorium with a borrowed sound system, perhaps, we shall see, I'm sure it'll be fun. And I did talk to Liz Fox and she had other obligations, but I said I thought we could get through it, so thanks for helping out there. Superintendent's report. I'm not gonna repeat, actually, we talked about the Pepple and Save and Liz's notes. I will say, we have verbally committed to have all our flow through money go to the AEA, but then because we had to do that by April 15th, the AEA at the superintendent's meeting last week, they kind of started to delineate what 100% of services, 80%, 60%. So if you look in that PowerPoint, maybe about slide, I thought it was just interesting because it was, I was able to take it back. Looks like slide 6 where they take out media services and say what the difference between 40%, 60%, 80% and 100%. And as an example, 100% is the only difference is specialty items and access to IT. Well, we have pretty good access to IT currently, so we might have been a better candidate for 80%, but I think the AA is going to give us an opportunity to kind of readjust this year, as I was told. And I will say that I anticipated that was one of the attachments I put on this whole AEA funding and the school district's ability to keep the funds. More districts are saying, oh yeah, we'll send 100% to the AEA, but I think it's just going to be a matter of time before districts look at the money that they need to run the district and pay teachers and stuff like that. And I would anticipate we'll be having different conversations. And as a kind of reminder, that's why I put in there. If 60% of our media would be $63,000 and 70% of our ed services is $70,000. So that's $134,000 that we are allowed by state law to keep. And I'm not saying that because I'm against AEAs in any stretch of the imagination, but just understand that, you know, when we talk about instructional coaches as an example, we do value, not that we don't value the AA staff, but there's costs and we're gonna have negotiations later tonight and we want to pay teachers more money, but it's gonna cost more. So it's just, I'll keep putting those numbers out in front of you so that you can see that. And the only district that I'm aware of in our AEA currently is Western Dubuque is going to keep their funding. But maybe Dubuque is thinking about as well. And of course, those are the two largest school districts in the AA, so that will have impact, but I think the AAs are already feeling impact as well, so. And, I should talk about the survey. We had the survey that was due, I think, April 15th. I don't know if I've said this to the whole board, but one of the discussions we had with the facility committee was what would be a good rate of response for a district our size. So when I called Jerry, he said, well, you really should get about 300 to 400 people that respond. If you don't get like, if you're under 300, if you're 200, you should be concerned that people didn't even take the time to do the survey. But 300 to 400 would be good. 700 would be fantastic. And so they were kind of updating us on the numbers, and I think we blew by 700 after like a week, and we ended up having over 1,100 responses to our survey. So obviously, as I told my parents who are Decorah natives, I said, those Decorah people have opinions and they like to share them. And them smile.
And many thoughtful comments.
And many thoughtful comments, thank you. Many thoughtful comments. There was just simply a question on, do you support a bond? And I think our percentage was 76%. Now, this is not any kind of a survey that, it's not a peer-reviewed survey or anything like that. So as I was talking to the group, I said, I can't tell you that 76 is a great percent, but it's better than if it had been 26% or 36. And Mark Jensen, who's on the committee, said, made a couple of he was very positive, and he made a point that if you have 76% and then there's a possible 8% that is undecided, you've got at least 800 yes votes right now. So that should, because we had over 1,000 people respond. And then when we think about the comments that we saw there, that a whole bunch of people took the survey and a small percentage had comments, and comments are usually reserved for things that you don't like or you don't have questions, but that helps feed us as we build our frequently asked questions. So we're able to answer, do you think about this site, or do you think about this location, or why are you doing this? And I think there was certainly some sticker shock on why it would cost $38 million or potentially $38 million. Comments made about, don't raise our taxes, and then on the other side, there's comments, be net zero as well. But that gives us an opportunity. We looked at it with our facility group and kind of made some notes and gave that information to Nick as we move forward. So, but I think overall, a phenomenal response to that survey. So that was great news. And
that's been, I know this because I received it, but that's been spread to the community base as well, the results of the survey.
Yeah, there was a press release that went out. I don't know how much coverage it got. You read it? Yeah. Okay. It's in the paper. So, yeah, so I can talk about my other stuff. I know we're kind of running up on the time, and because we do have our negotiations meeting was going to start about 8:15 tonight, I believe.
I think it's worth saying at our board meeting also about that figure with the $38 million, which many people commented on in the survey, is that there is not a plan that's been made by our architect at this point. So there's no number that's out there that's a determined number at this point. So I think that would be important to know that it's an ongoing process, and our goal is to plan out the most cost-effective and usable building that we possibly can. And I think when people see that plan, that our goal is for that plan to sell itself, because we've asked everyone who is involved in the building to give us, the problems that need to get solved. We've done a needs analysis, and we've solved those problems and put together just an amazing plan. And I think that's what this facility committee is working to do.
And that's a really good point. Thanks, Carol. To get, Nick's estimating the amount of, he's not specific what the space looks like, but just the amount of space that you might do for a house. And they used a multiplier of $350
Per square foot.
per square foot. And, so we had a discussion about how that number's gone up. And it helped that, Steve Slesser from the hospital, we just did a construction project and they're using $450 a square foot. And people talked about house and, I haven't built a house recently, but we had the number of $250 a square foot. So I'm looking for a thumbs up, thumbs down from somebody in the audience who maybe have done that process, but understand the $350 wasn't a horrible estimate. We hope that it's not that much, but, and then the other fact that John Burmeister talks about is he's conservative when he's estimating the interest rates we'll get when we borrow. So you might have more borrowing capacity based on interest rates as well. But you don't wanna, say it's not gonna cost that much. This is a time to be conservative. So.
Yeah, those estimates are out there based on a square foot cost without a final plan or even anywhere near a final plan. So we're just doing a lot of due diligence, a lot of work and more to follow, right?
Thanks, Tim. Yep. And finally, our financial report.
Well, you were talking about, all the things that we have to pay for each year. A couple of weeks ago, I put together a document, I shared it with Tim on all the subscriptions we have, say for bleacher inspections, our lift inspections, all the different, dues we pay. Was it over $500,000, $553,000?
Yeah. Cause when you handed it to me, it said, this is over $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a document that we could share with you if you want to know some of the ongoing costs year to year.
I would like to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great to share with the board.
And then on our financial account, 5 of our accounts are down, 3 of them are up, and 1 stay the same. So it's pretty even. The cash flow, so their income is up about 656,000. Our expenses up for about 900,000. So we're down about 243. That's just general fund. So, but we do have the unspent balance for that to carry through, and then this is on a cash basis, then you always get the additional spending authority. So it's dollars, but not necessarily cash behind that too. So that always plays into it too.
This is the first time I'm looking at it. I've noticed that the SAVE fund was called the Silo Fund back in 2013, 2014.
Another acronym.
Yeah.
Now I don't even know what it stands for.
School infrastructure local options.
Okay. There you go.
Get around it.
So
It's not even trivia night.
Yeah.
Kathy, you mentioned that we are down about 200,000. Is that typical? Is that within, I mean, and I know that things fluctuate at different times of year, but.
Yeah, that would be about a good range to be in.
And that's one of the things we're hyper aware of is, kind of, we've had this discussion with the principals, and as someone leaves, do we really need to fill the position? Is there a different way we can fill the position? But yeah, one of the big things is staffing, and we'll continue to look at staffing. And I think we've quietly reduced staff this year without making a big deal about it in some areas. But we'll continue to look at that.
Yeah, receipts to date, when you look at the 22-23 revenue versus 23-24, they're down 2.2 million. That means we haven't received some monies yet.
And where are you looking?
Look at where the blue and the gray.
Right, and if you take a look at that, the last 3 rows are all the same because you don't have May and June in them yet.
That makes sense. Yeah, okay. Those are students haven't showed up. Got it.
Any other questions for Kathy?
Just a slight comment back to what Tim said, but I can wait a second. People have other questions for him. I think Tim alluded to the financial aspect. Sorry. Alluded to how we're attempting to, be wise about our staffing considerations, and we've received some feedback from parents over the last period of weeks, that the kindergarten class sizes will be smaller next year, not larger. So staffing has not expanded our classroom sizes massively to this point.
No, and I'll get Rick to respond to the email. We're not gonna have kindergarten class sizes are they
No.
20?
With that, right now, they're sitting at, we've got one TK section. And then, with that, and we would have about 100 right now that we've, going after come and see day, got everybody in the building, knowing all of our collaborative preschool partners, pretty much scouring everything we know out there. So, yeah, right now I've got 100 in kindergarten, which we put us at 5 sections of 20 per class.
Keep us posted.
Yes, I will. Those numbers, yeah. And again, to be honest, they were, when we first started stuff, but then you got to figure in, I think Benedict's, Montessori, all the others, people that move out, people that aren't even here that were, that here in fall and preschool. So it was a little higher when we first started the process. And of course, as you get closer and closer, we get a better number. So I'm feeling pretty confident about where we're at right now.
And this community is unique in the sense that we have a couple of non-publics that register kindergartners, and that kind of impacts our numbers. Usually, the other districts I've been in where you don't have public schools, and we're the only school, like they come and your kindergarten numbers just grow, but ours actually go down as people weigh decisions between the two.
Okay, we're at the end of our agenda, so we'll call the meeting adjourned.